Welcome back to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price. You are listening to... You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price.
Either way, I don't give a damn what you think you are entitled to.
Ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've been waiting for. So listen responsibly.
It's the best of the best. It's the one and only DJ Ice, Louisville's coldest DJ.
Good evening. Welcome to Conscious Fever here on Ice Entertainment Television and Conscious Fever Radio. I am Carl Price, your host. We got a short show tonight. I do have a guest. The guest is Paul Mullins, and tonight we're going to talk about something that's very interesting, that's hot in the news. It is called, we titled it, Israel, Hamas, Who's Right, Who's Wrong. A very, very interesting way to just get into the know of what's going on in this country. And I know that individuals have very, very strong opinions about this. Most of the media is generally talking about, thank you, audience. Most of the media is generally talking about what's happening to Israel. But on the ground here in America, it appears to be almost split, that some are advocating for Hamas and some are advocating for Israel. So we just wanted to dive into that topic just a little bit tonight. Israel, Hamas, who's right, who's wrong? Israel has been around for 75 years. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. My guest tonight is going to be Paul Mullins. And when we come back, we're going to bring him on. It's Conscious Fever, Ice Entertainment Television, Conscious Fever Radio. I'm Carl Price, your host. We'll be right back.
At least 3 injuries, one bleeding from the head. Our caller also stated that one party is unresponsive with severe injuries. They believe it may be fatal.
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price. And we are back with more Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price, Esquire.
I'm Carl Price. This is Conscious Fever here on Ice Entertainment Television, Conscious Fever Radio. We are back. So Israel, Hamas, who's right, who's wrong? I'm going to bring my good lawyer friend here on camera, Paul Mullins. How are you, Paul?
Hey, Carl, what's up?
Interesting topic tonight. We've got a short topic. Actually, we have a short show tonight. So I really want to talk about this topic, Israel, Hamas, who's right, who's wrong. And I'll start off by saying this, that the media is pro-Israel. Clearly, it is pro-Israel. There are things, according to the Palestine or the Palestinian people, there are things that are going on over in Gaza that some may characterize as war crimes, human rights violations committed by Israel. I don't know that to be the case. All I know, Paul, is that that is one of the allegations.
So, I'm not going to sit here and pick a side. I don't live in the Middle East. I don't live in Israel. I don't live in the Gaza Strip. I can't give a history. I can only tell what I've read, heard, seen on YouTube videos. So I'm not going to necessarily pick a position, but I can tell you what I'm observing. We know that there was a horrendous attack last week. Was it October 7th or something around there? I don't know the exact date. I think it was October 7th. And we all know what happened. We saw the videos. And, the Israelis feel like that's a 9/11 event for them. So the fact that they had a response to that, I think the majority of Americans, as well as myself, think that they were in the right to have some type of response. I think what it's grown into is something that looks like that it could escalate into a bigger war. I think people are afraid of that. I think some of the response by Israel, some people may feel is overblown. The example that I like to think of is if I'm a friend of yours, Carl, and a smaller a smaller person comes up to you and threatens you, but you don't do anything back. And maybe that's a mischaracterization to say that Israel hasn't provoked this, but from what it appears like in the news media outlets is that the little kid punches my friend in the stomach. I'm the United States, you're Israel. You respond, jump on the kid, and pound him into the ground. At some point, you're saying to yourself, as the United States, how much is too much? When should you step in and say, okay, Israel, you've done this, but are we going to stand by it and let them eradicate an entire nation of people? I don't know. I don't want to get into the claims of who deserves to be in Israel, who deserves to be in the Gaza Strip, whether there's settlements, whether there's colonization, all those problems that stem from their conflict. We can't solve their conflict because that conflict goes back to biblical times.
It's a religious conflict.
Right. You can't tell somebody who says the Torah or the Quran tells me that this land is mine, and it's not. So they're going to fight over that land because they feel spiritually entitled. So I can get into legally whose land it is. It was gifted to. I say gifted, but it was recognized by the Western world that it's Israel's land. And Israel would argue, rightly so, that Palestine was never a country. It was a people, never a country. So how can they lay claim to a land that they've never had a country for?
And that's the American history that you've read.
Well, Carl, I mean,
no. Listen,
we've
Paul.
had this debate.
No, right. And we're not debating. We're not taking sides. I want everybody to understand that we're not taking sides, Israel or Hamas. We're just talking about the topic. So I just make that comment, Paul, just to make the point that there was the American history we learned when we were in junior high school, elementary school, and some in high school was not really the American history. So some would say that the position that Americans believe that Israel should always be in may not be correct.
I mean, I disagree, but I disagree with your point there. It's been a recognized country since 1947 or 48, and the day after they were recognized as a country, they were attacked by all the Arabs in that region. And up until 1967, the current boundaries, if I'm speaking correctly, in 1967, I think they ended a war with Egypt because Egypt had occupied the same area of Gaza that they're arguing over, and no one complained when Egypt occupied Gaza. But then the Israelis fought Egypt, and as part of winning the war with Egypt, they now control the Gaza Strip. Now all of a sudden the Palestinians feel oppressed. I'm not getting into the right or wrong, but I know that at one point you can't cut off food, you can't cut off supply, you can't cut off basic human needs to people, no matter how destructive they want to be, because at the end of the day, if the United States continues to stand by and let Israel have a blank check, what if they wipe all the Palestinians out? Are we part of the same genocide that we protected the Jewish people from in 1945?
Right, but some would argue that that's exactly what's going on on the Gaza Strip. I mean, of course, you've heard that is it IDF?
Yes,
Yeah, the IDF and Benjamin Netanyahu basically made it very clear a few days ago that the Palestinians had 24 hours to the tune of about 1 million people plus had only 24 hours to get out of Gaza because they were going to start bombing. And of course, you have this hospital this hospital issue,
It's an issue,
right?
right?
It is an
bombed
issue.
it?
You know, who bombed it? So, arguably, some are saying that the sympathy for Hamas is that you have an Israeli government that is saying, we are going to shoot to kill. In fact, I think one of the army generals in Israel today was quoted as saying, we will be on the other side in just a few days, suggesting that they were going to wipe out all the Palestinians in Gaza, and they were going to occupy. I guess it is called the Gaza Strip or the West Bank. I'm not sure.
Which is ridiculous because they're doing, you know, to go in and put your ground troops there is exactly what Hamas has been preaching to the Palestinians that the Israelis were going to do to them anyway. So why are you going to come in and occupy with physical force, which they already feel occupied, and they may be, that's another debate. But why would you take your troops, raise the city? Now, understand, people who are watching, if you didn't know, the Gaza Strip, you could say, is about the size of Louisville, right? Maybe like it's literally a strip of land it's about the size of Washington, D.C., or a small area, okay? We're not talking about the state of Kentucky. 25 miles, maybe 25 miles by 20 miles or something like it's a relatively small area, you know, roughly the size of Jefferson County, if you will.
With a lot of people in it.
With a lot of people in it. So when you see those pictures of the entire city, well, maybe it's not the entire city. Maybe I'm projecting that it's the entire city. But you see pictures of an entire section of the city destroyed. My question becomes, who's going to rebuild that? Like, are you going to level the city to look for 1,500 militants or more? And what are you going to do after it? And I'm not sitting here saying Israel didn't have a right to respond and I'm protecting Hamas. No. I'm absolutely, me and Carl, we have argued about this. I'm absolutely on the side of Israel. But again, I feel like watching my friend beat up a smaller kid and deciding when do I step in and say, hey, enough's enough. I mean, they pummeled the city. If they're still attacking back, I'm not really getting any news of that. The only news we're getting currently in the media is that Israel's bombing and they're wanting their hostages back. I don't know if they're still fighting. I just don't know.
Right, which really doesn't make any sense for them to continue to bomb Gaza, because if they are concerned about the hostages, obviously the hostages are going to be in harm's way if they continue to bomb Gaza, if they're in Gaza.
I don't think they care.
Right, and that's the problem. So let me just get back to another point. Let me just share with you all something that bothered me about Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu. Right, one of the issues I had with him, because we're lawyers, Paul. Right, one of the issues I had with him was that when he got charged with the corruption charges, he wanted to get rid of the Israeli Supreme Court, which meant that, like our three branches of government, the checks and balances system would no longer exist in Israel. And to me, that is a dictator's move, because you're saying I can do anything and nobody can come and question what I'm doing as I lead this country. You also understand that there are some of the Israeli people who really don't approve of, Benjamin Netanyahu. He won the election. They say it was fair. I think there are some arguments that maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But the point I'm making is that I'm not a friend of Benjamin Netanyahu. And the other part of my problem with this want to be dictator, and again, I'm not taking sides. I'm just telling you what I've seen about the prime minister of Israel and what is taking place. For a man to say we're just going to start killing people, whether they're people in Hamas or people in some other part of this country, I just think it's wrong. Now, let me back up and say what Hamas did was absolutely wrong. Going into Israel, taking women and children and men, taking helpless individuals, taking elderly people and holding them hostage, and then, killing them, going to that concert, killing people point blank when they were on the ground. Completely wrong. But are we okay with Israel then saying, an eye for an eye, all we're going to do is just bomb the whole Gaza Strip. You got 24 hours to get out or you're going to be dead. And they didn't say exactly that, but initially, but eventually that was the whole point. We're going to bomb Gaza in 24 hours. All y'all have to get out. And then we get to this thing about the hospital.
And they got nowhere to go.
And they have nowhere to go.
But this is one point that I made to another person. When they say they have nowhere to go, I say, well, think about this. They're an Arab country, but the other neighboring Arab country won't let them in either. Think about that. The Gazans can't go to Egypt, another Arab country. They won't let them in because they too know that the Hamas and the radical influence will disrupt their country. So there is a problem there. But the issue is, do you wipe out 6 million people to get to the 1,500 or 2,000 who are a problem?
Well, there's not 6 million people on the Gaza Strip, is it?
It's about 6 million.
Okay. So you beg the question. I'm going to ask the question. The question is that the solution? Just get rid of Hamas? Obviously, if you get rid of...
They do need to get rid of Hamas. No.
Oh, no. Let me finish my thought. Hamas is a terrorist group, right? Because Hamas is a terrorist group, then obviously that's an issue. But if it were as simple as to say there's the terrorist group right there in this cell and they're all right here, it would be an easy fix.
So the reason.
So how do you? I'm just going to ask the question. So what is the resolution?
I don't know.
Do you then kill all? Do you kill as many Palestinians as possible just to get to this small cell?
I don't know. And people are criticizing Biden because of his unwavering support for Israel, but we look like hypocrites if we tell Israel you can't go into Gaza Strip to kill Hamas when we went to Afghanistan to seek out and kill Osama bin Laden. We didn't even kill him in Afghanistan. We killed him in Pakistan. We went to another country. Just said we going in, we getting him. Too bad. Now, have we killed a bunch of people trying to?
That's not a good example, Paul. But go ahead.
Why isn't it?
Well, it's not. Let me tell you why it's not a good example. It's not a good example because there's a lot of other background and collateral factors there.
There
okay.
Is, but they feel like this is their 9/11.
Well, no, I understand that. But what I'm saying is that bin Laden was a little bit different because he obviously had he was like an individual with a warrant, a criminal with a warrant in America. So they felt like that, the Afghanistan government wouldn't cooperate. So we needed to go and do what we need to do. But go ahead. I'll let you finish your thought.
I don't want to defend Palestinians versus Israelis, but I can understand if I were an Israeli, how I would say to the United States, how can you not support us when you went into Afghanistan? You went into a sovereign country because the government wouldn't hand over one person, and you disrupted that whole country. You landed your troops there. They didn't destroy the country. The country was already destroyed, but you leveled the country to get to one person. So that's what they would think. I'm not saying either that it's right because
what it sounds like is that you killed before. We're just doing the killing like you did, so we should be okay.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Not good. Not good at all. Not cool at all.
From their perspective, this is why Biden supports them, because we did the same thing, and there has to be a better solution than just eye for an eye. And the problem with this, and why I don't like Hamas, is simply because Hamas's declaration is, we will not stop until Israel does not exist. So how can you have a peace when they're the governing body? Actually, I've read a little bit about this.
But Israel's position is the same, right?
Well, hold on. To say that Palestine, that the Hamas is the governing body, Palestinians don't really have a central governing body because they're not a state. They have individuals who claim that they're better leaders. So you remember Yasser Arafat, he controlled the Palestine PLO. They now have another group called the PLs or some POs, and then they have Hamas. Well, there's different groups who claim they are the better leaders. And Hamas did this, and people say that's the government. It's not really the government because they don't really have a government. They have people who claim that they would be better leaders and better leadership, but since they're not a state, you can't really say they have a government. And that's the problem. You have terrorist groups there who are like, it would be like some individuals in your neighborhood going and screwing up downtown, and then the city of Louisville coming and raising the whole neighborhood.
But
It's
then,
not really right.
yeah. Well, here, again, I'm not a fan of Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel. Obviously, a sovereign country has to do what it has to do to protect its citizens, and especially when you have terrorists come in and actually kill them. And I completely get that. But I guess my concern is I think the American people in the world should get the whole story. And when I say the whole story,
You can't do the whole story.
No. When I say the whole story, Paul, I mean you can't just always talk about what's happening to Israel and not talk about what has happened to the Palestinians. I mean, you can't do that. I mean, if you're going to be impartial about it, right? You can't just say, well, Israel is a victim, and they in fact were the victim last week of this terrorist attack. But what I'm saying is that we saw a video, and we can show the video if you want, but the video of someone from, I don't know where he was from, but I think it was a Palestinian with Pierce Morgan, right? In that video, he's talking about, for every one Israeli that was killed over time, there has been 27 Palestinians.
Right. So the Israelis, when they were, if you're calling, I don't know if it's a response mechanism. I don't know who attacks first, but the Israeli idea is if you kill one of our people, we're going to kill 10 times as many. And it's terrible, just like now. 1,500 people were taken. There's 150 hostages. Israelis are killing thousands. I don't even know what to believe anymore.
Right.
I don't know if it's 500 were killed at the hospital or 1,500 or 3,500. The stories are just so crazy, so I don't know what to believe. And I don't know whose fault that is because both sides are telling you, believe me, believe me. But you can't have a solution in the Middle East if one side says our negotiation is that you can't exist anymore. And, of course, the Palestinians would say the Israelis don't want us to exist. And the Israelis would say, no, the Palestinians don't want us to exist. But only one control group, which is Hamas, has in their charter on line 2, our goal is the destruction of Israel. And that's really...
So why are we there?
Why are we there?
Why is the United States there? I mean, and I understand Israel is an ally, and I understand the interest in... I mean, do we have a base in Tel Aviv? Do we have a military base in Tel Aviv?
Embassy.
No, we have an embassy. I understand everybody has an embassy, but I'm just saying, do we have a military base in Tel Aviv?
I do not know.
So my question is, why are we there? This conflict is never going to be resolved. It's been going on for at least 75 years and that's the time frame that Israel has existed as a country. But so what is our purpose there, other than being the world's leader in resolving conflict and assisting in conflict when there are human rights abuses, right?
The West owes Israel its protection and its support because the West is the one that put Israel in place. So you can't put a country in the Middle East and then say,
can't make a baby and abandon it. I got you.
So I agree with that philosophy. I'm not, I think that here's a point I read today. I looked up Obama's response to the Middle East crisis, and he got a lot of flack for what he did. But what Obama did was he did not like Netanyahu as well, if you didn't know that. He wasn't a fan of Netanyahu. And he basically made the peace talks harder for the Israelis because he told them that there would not be any peace negotiations until the Israelis.
I think it was the other way around. I think Benjamin Netanyahu did not like Obama. But go ahead.
Okay, whatever. But they didn't get along. They didn't get along. But this is what he did. He told the Israelis that they had to abandon their settlements. So when people hear settlements, it's like colonizers from England coming to America and settling on the new land and then claiming it as their own once they've been there for a while. So that's what the Palestinians are alleging that the Israelis have been doing in the West Bank and now in Gaza. So they have settlements there. You've heard of the settlements. And what that basically is the Israelis come in, they settle there, and then they remain there. And so now the people in the West Bank are like, hey, this is our land. Go back to Israel since that's the country you wanted. And so in Gaza, we saw one of the people in the interviews with Pierce say they fear that the Israelis are going to raise the Gaza Strip, kick all the Palestinians out, rebuild it, and then keep it. That's their fear. And so, so Obama said in 2000, I don't remember the year, but after 2008, obviously, he told Netanyahu that he would not do peace talks between the two countries until Netanyahu got all his people out of the settlements. And that was something the Palestinians didn't even ask for. So when Netanyahu didn't agree to that, guess what the Palestinians said? They said, oh, we adopt Obama's.
Right, because the prime minister, which is Benjamin Netanyahu, he always had an issue with Obama because Obama had a Muslim name, an Arab name.
Well, I mean, I don't think Obama was I don't think he was an Arab.
No, I don't think he was either, but I'm just saying that because he had that name,
Right.
That always became a problem for the Israeli prime minister. But
I do sympathize.
But let's talk about the hospital.
Okay, hold on. I want to say I do sympathize with the Palestinians where they think that people are moving into their, for all intents and purposes, neighborhood, settling there, and then claiming it as their own. I may not know the true history. Somebody who's from Israel may smack me down and say you're wrong, but this is what they think, and if that's what they believe, I have sympathy for that because it's like you're giving us the Gaza Strip. It's a little small strip of land the size of Louisville, and then you're giving us the West Bank, and then you're moving your Israelis in and then claiming it. It's like, where else are we going to go? But the problem is the Palestinians are like, we own all of this land, Israel, Gaza Strip, and the West Bank, and we won't be free until when they say we want to be free, they don't mean get out of Gaza, get out of the West Bank. They mean get out of Israel. And that's where the problem is. So Israel's goal may be sneaky, as in trying to take all the land, but Hamas's goal is out in the open. This is what we're going to do.
Well, I think both of them are. I think both are. I'm call Palestine a country, but and there isn't. But I think both are. But we're going to talk about. I want to talk about. I mean, I know there's some clips that we want to show, and we can show those clips. I want to talk about the hospital bombing because I understand the debate in the hospital bombing, but I'm going to do that right after we take a quick break. So we'll be right back here on Conscious Fever.
Now check it out.
I have wept and I have fallen. Don't you worry about me. 'Cause I stood up, yes, I have grown. The pain has set me free. And like a broken record in my head.
You didn't think that last picture was me? Is that what you're saying? No, it was me, just a younger version, actually just a blacker version. Anyway, I'm Carl Price. This is Conscious Fever here on Ice Entertainment Television, Conscious Fever Radio. Welcome back. We want to make this show as short as we possibly can, but I want to talk about the hospital, Paul. I want to talk about the incident with the hospital. So for those of you who don't know, earlier this week, or maybe this past weekend, a rocket, so it's called, hit a hospital in the Gaza Strip. I don't know if it was on the Strip, but it was in Gaza. And initially, it was thought that it came from Israel because Gaza wouldn't bomb its own hospital, right? But now there are reports out there that are saying that actually the missile was a misfire by Hamas and misfired and hit the hospital. We were talking about that earlier, Paul, and I took issue with your interpretation of what had taken place. And I should let everybody know that the evidence that is out there is not conclusive evidence as to where the rocket came from. No, I'm sorry. Let me back up. The evidence is not conclusive that it actually was a misfire by Hamas. Okay? All of the evidence that suggests that it was a misfire by Hamas is all circumstantial. Okay, although there's a video that Pierce Morgan talks about that seems to suggest that there's a big fire over there, and then all of a sudden the hospital blows up. So that's why I want to talk about, Paul. Let's talk about this hospital, because one of my concerns is that I was a little bit concerned that the Biden administration came out almost immediately and said, we adopt Israel's version of what has happened. And my problem with that is, as we talked earlier, it's very simple. It's very simple, right? Hamas attacked Israel like a burglar in the dark, right? Because they feared that it would not be very productive to actually attack head on, right? When Israel is ready. So they were able to sneak in just like a burglar at night. And I say to you that burglars do not strike in the daytime. Well, some that are stupid do, but generally they don't attack generally they don't strike in the daytime. Are you with me, Paul?
No.
They don't strike. Okay, well, no, just hear me out. Just hear me out. So what doesn't make sense to me is that Hamas would, now that Israel is on full alert that they can be attacked, that Hamas would let a rocket leave Gaza into Israel. And this is the rocket that they're saying that actually hit the hospital. So I have some issue with that, because to me, I'm not convinced from the evidence that I'm seeing that it didn't come from Israel. Your thoughts?
We're never going to be convinced either way, because you're going to get a story from both sides, and none of us are over there. And
right, but we can independently evaluate the evidence once it becomes a lot stronger.
We can only evaluate what people tell us. So right now, our president tells us that he's done his investigation through his department, and they've determined that it's a rocket that was misfired from Hamas.
Do you think he would get backlash if he said it the other way?
I think if it were true the other way,
because it would be a war crime if it came from Israel.
Yes, the reason why this is important for anybody listening is that if it's considered a war crime if you attack certain places such as a hospital, because the hospitals where people are sick, they're not combatants, but at the same time, you're not supposed to have your troops and soldiers hiding in a hospital. So that's a whole nother story to get into. But the reason why I think it could be Hamas is because, would it be uncommon for a half-baked military, not a real government, but a bunch of militia people to have problems operating correctly munitions? And isn't it, they've had other misfires where you think you're operating the equipment right, and you screw it up.
I agree.
We have these in our own military.
I agree, but that's not what I'm talking about.
Well, you was talking about a misfire.
Yeah. I was, but not only the misfire. I was also making the point, Paul, that it doesn't make sense to me.
It wouldn't make sense.
Listen, it doesn't make sense to me that, first of all, Hamas struck at night because they caught Israel off guard, and when you do that, you do that for a reason.
I thought it was daylight.
Whatever it was, they got beyond Israel's intelligence to get there. So now, so Israel was totally unexpecting that this would happen, and that made Israel an easy target. And I think that Hamas wanted it that way because it's easier to do it that way to accomplish their goals. So now that Israel is on alert, just like I just said, now that Israel is on alert, why in the hell?
Carl,
let me finish. I know terrorists are not the smartest people in the world.
That ain't my question.
But why in the hell would you then do it knowing that there is going to be some retaliation? Hold on. Let me finish. You know there's going to be some retaliation from Israel. Now, Hamas may have done it thinking that, well, you're not going to bomb over here because we got 150. Is it 150 or 1,500 of your citizens? Which one is it? 150 or 1,500?
It's 150 now.
So that's the issue that I have. It just doesn't make sense for Hamas to have done. And then there is really no direct evidence that the rocket came from Gaza.
Well, there's no direct evidence that it came from either side, but but
the motivation for Israel to do it is great.
Let me respond to your allegation that why would they do it? The reason why they do it is because they think they're at war with Israel. They have thought.
But they've always thought that for 75 years.
And the second part that you're not giving them credit for or discredit for, they don't care about the citizens. If they cared about the citizens, they wouldn't have attacked in the first place. You're trying to work towards a peace agreement. There's been violence against them, but there hasn't been anything to provoke a military action. And so why would you send an invasion force across the lines, knowing you couldn't take over Israel, knowing that there would be a response? They don't care about the citizens. If they cared about the citizens, they would have done. If they cared about the citizens, they would accept the two-state system. The two-state system's been offered to them since 1967, since 1948. They won't accept it because a two-state system means that they have a country and Israel has a country, and that doesn't jive with their belief that Israel shouldn't be a country. So you can't negotiate with these people. So their idea that they're not going to attack Israel because they're going to attack my people is bogus. They don't care about their people. They don't care about their people.
So you're saying the terrorists just don't care?
They
so
don't care
everything.
About Hamas is not the Palestinians, and I feel sorry for the Palestinians that they have a leadership or a group of people
that are terrorists
purporting to be their leaders, who they can't even. First of all, they don't even see them as terrorists, and they think that they attacked us, and Hamas is the only one standing up for our freedoms. Because I do think they have a point. If I'm living in Palestine, I don't feel like a human being. I feel like a slave. I feel like I'm trapped in a country. I feel like the only thing I'm going to see for the rest of my life is these 25 miles of this strip. If I go across the strip, I'm going to be treated like a criminal. So I can't leave. I can't get in a ship. I can't go to Egypt. I'm stuck here for my whole life. So I sympathize with the citizens. It's not what they believe. This is what their biblical teachings, the Quran teaches them. That Christians and Jews are infidels, right? Christians and Jews are infidels, and you have every right to kill them. So, no, they don't agree. I don't agree that they wouldn't do that. Of course they would be trying to fire records. Of course they're not sophisticated enough to use their artillery correctly. And of course they might hit their own people. And of course they would lie about it. So, I mean, I'm ranting.
I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord that I wake again. I wake again. I pray the Lord that I wake. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord that I wake again. I wake again. I wake again. I pray the Lord that I wake.
Best of the best. It's the one and only.
You can't handle the truth.
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price.
I don't want them, no, get them all off me. Say that for hell, she'll cause a scene. 4 cars deep, we'll come through on a lane. Chicken spot fries, we call that a day night. Lights on, so out, I don't have no stage fright. Knew that I was built for this forever, ever, ever.
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price.
We ride bands, 10 times 10, all my friends, it's for real.
I get enough of you. Bright sneakers on, getting ready for a flashback. Time keeps moving on, looking at you feeling like I could never get enough of you. And I could never get enough of you. I could never get enough of you.
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price on 97thebeatfm.com.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh yes it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh yes it is. Then I go to my and I say, brother, help me please. But he wind up knocking me back down on the knees. There've been times that I thought I couldn't last for long, but now I think I'm able, Father, to carry on. And it's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes it is. Yes it is. Yes it is. Said I know that a change is gonna come one day. I know a change